Welcome to the Dad Task Force. This week is our spooky election show. Just like everybody else, it's Halloween on Thursday, so we want to set the tone right and get into the things that have happened to us that, they align with the spookiness. And then we're going to get into the election portion. And it's not necessarily what you think it might be. I started off with one idea, and as I started to do research, I fell into a rabbit hole that I didn't expect to get into. But he is unaware of anything I looked at, and I absolutely have zero idea how he votes, nor does he have any idea how I do. Just guessing. So we'll jump into that. But first, what is your spooky story?
I've got two. The first one, lived in this just creepy house in college. Rent was cheap. Great house, or seemingly great house. And this house, like pretty soon after we moved in, would have very drastic temperature changes. Like over the span of a few minutes, it would go from being freezing cold to being like scorching hot in the house to being freezing cold again. And it wasn't like just one person having like, heat, whatever. It was like everybody in the house felt the same way. Then a couple months later, like mold starts growing on one of the walls. We move out of that house. A couple years later, I'm just like, I'm going to check on this house. The house was definitely condemned. Like nobody could live there after that time. Second story, my grandma passed shortly before my oldest daughter was born. And we're in her room, like putting her to bed one night, and she's like, I think she's around a year old. Eric would probably know better. But like soon after she starts talking, and she's like looking up in the corner at the ceiling and like talking to someone. And Erica goes like, who are you talking to? And she's like, oh, mama. And like, I have never been more scared to turn around in my entire life. Cause she had like never met her. I did not turn around. She had never met her, and she's like saying she's talking to this lady. And so that's probably the creepiest moment I've had firsthand.
Huh.
So
interesting. Any recurrences of the second thing?
Of the second thing, have there been? No, thank goodness, because I would be creeped out. What are your scary stories? Spooky stories?
By the way, Mrs. Producer hates it when I say spooky, and she gets irritated with me, and I laugh because I think it's funny. Can you look at that monitor? Does it look? And by the way, Mrs. Producer's not here this evening. So does that look fuzzy?
It's a little bit fuzzy.
All right, I'm gonna clean this up before we get going.
All right.
Super professional people, I understand. I mean, it caught that super crisp dog here. Floating
There you go.
Sky.
Right.
It was so weird. I was in the middle of a meeting today, like we're in a contract meeting with a provider in Southern California today, and there's just, I can't tell what it is because it's only in my screen, but it's just this orb that's just floating. I can't like see it with my eyes, but I can see it in the camera on the screen. What the hell is that? And maybe it was just because I was primed for tonight.
For spooky.
Yeah.
Something was here.
Yeah, so I have two stories. Now, the first didn't happen to me, but I was there, right? So I was a cop in California, and even in California in February, it gets kind of cold, right?
Right.
So most of my cop career, I worked in on the midnight shift, and we got a call at the end of the shift, first thing in the morning, of a runaway girl, and she was like, I don't know, 9 or 10 maybe. And we get to this house. There's no history, with the house or the family members inside of it. We just But upon arrival, in the middle of the street, in her nightgown and barefooted, is this girl just standing there. Wow. That in and of itself isn't the spooky part, but that was the girl, right?
It's kind of creepy.
So we go inside, and Mom is trying to put out a wooden butcher block in a kitchen that the girl had set on fire. And the mom's telling us, trying to tell us, is this your kid? Yeah. What happened? She's like, I have no idea. The smoke alarm was going off. I came downstairs. This was on fire. She was standing there, and then she took off. So I called 911 because she took off and ran out of the house. And I'm trying to put this out because it's just this, that, and the other. And just so much going on. It's like, okay. Well, everybody's safe. Mm-hmm. Let's slow things down. Let's have a conversation. Go talk to your child.
Right.
And she goes, yeah. And I look at the little girl, and I'm like, hey, where do you want to talk? Where's comfortable for you to talk about what happened? And she was upstairs and tired. So she wanted to go back to where her bedroom was. And we asked Mom if that was okay. And she's like, yeah. So a couple of us went upstairs just to make sure everything was okay. And as we're passing through the house at about, waist high, where a girl this age would be, her hands would go, is several pictures of scrabble of shadowy figures, people. And she goes, I said, did you draw these? And she goes, I did. Those are the shadow people. It's like, oh, do you see the shadow people? And she goes, I do. They told me to set the house on fire and get out.
What?
And so I'm like, okay, well, I can't see them. So you're going to have to help me out and just let me know if you see them come around or what's the situation is. Mm-hmm. And she says, well, they don't like your partner and they're going to try to kill him. So I look at my beat partner and I'm like, hey, man, you got to step out of here if you don't mind, just to get this conversation. And he steps back, and she goes, that made them happier, but they don't like you either. They want you to wrap this up. Okay. Now, if you are unaware, take the moment, go onto your internet browser, and type in the search bar, shadow people, Thin Man, the Hat Man, whatever it is. Globally, around the world, and every culture, there is some version of this that exists.
Yeah.
In every tribe, nation, you name it, it exists.
Right.
So that was the first spooky story. Now, for what it's worth, once in a while, the Hat Man appears, or the shadow people appear. And you're like, oh, well. Yeah. It's an inconvenience, but there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
Now, my second one, I was working at a high school teaching parenting classes as a school resource officer, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and a janitor had brought in a credit card that he had found in the quad, and he's like, hey, can you turn this back into its owner? And it was a teacher, and it's like, yeah, I'll put it on the principal's desk. I'll call the principal, say, hey, I put this credit card on your desk. Can you get it back to its owner tomorrow when they come back to work? And he goes, yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm. So just to give some layout, long building. You walk through the main doors and you cross the main hall into a little, probably 20 foot long by 20 foot wide secondary hall that actually went back outside to the courtyard. Right. Okay. So that makes sense. It's called like a T.
Yeah.
And when you walked in through the main doors, you crossed the hall, and in this little sectional hall, to the left was the administration office. To the right was the counseling center.
Okay.
So you walk in to the one on the left, the admin office where the principal's office is, and you open the door. So I have keys because everything's locked. I open the door, I hold it open, I walk in. I go in, I unlock his door, I put the credit card on the desk. I call him, I said, hey, this is what's going on. He's like, cool. And he's actually just watching me on the camera in his office because he thought he was being funny. Mm-hmm. I go to the bathroom, which is next door to his office. So in the office, there's like a lobby with the secretary's desk. And then there's like a secondary room with another secretary's desk, his office.
All right.
To the back left would be a third office, and to the back right is the main principal's office. And in between the main principal's office and this AP is the bathroom. Okay. So just to kind of lay it out. Mm-hmm. So I come out of the bathroom, and there is a graduation gown hanging on the wall outside of the principal's office because they use it once a year for graduation. There's no use to doing anything with it. They leave it there. But it's like fluttering off the wall. And it's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't remember a fan being on. So I walk into that second lobby, and there's no ceiling fan. There's no box fan. There's no floor fan. No gust of air, no wind, no vents that were actively blowing air to cause the gown to flutter. And I'm scratching my head going, what in the hell is going on? And I hear it. Laughing. I'm like, that's... So I call the principal, and I'm like, do you have speakers on your cameras? Like, what do you... Uh-huh. He's like, no. I was like, why? I was like, because I hear laughing. And he goes, that's weird. Yeah. He's like, there shouldn't be laughing in the office, you know. And it's an older building, but it's still not so old that things travel through walls like that. Anyhow, we move on into... I hang up with him. I still hear the laughter. I'm kind of looking around now to see if maybe I'm being pranked. Right. It's pretty secure. There's nobody really in there. And I go to open the door to get out. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the story, you had to pull the door open to get in. So it opened to the hallway, which means to get out, you turn the knob and you push. Right. So I go to push the door open, and it slams shut on me. This door is wood and glass. There's no scissor hinge on the top. There's no mechanized hinges on it to keep the door shut. But it's like it was like somebody had their foot on the other side of the door, and you were trying to push it open and couldn't get it past their foot. I can see on the other side of the door because it's glass. There's nothing there. And I hear the laughing again. And so I push and I push and I push. And finally I just concede. Mm-hmm. Like I go to walk out through the principal's office and go through the other exit and then just gonna walk around the school. And I hear the laughing stops. And so I wait, I look around, and try the door again, and it opens without any hesitation.
And then the next day you resigned.
No. So the next day I went in, I'm like, you're not going to believe what happened last night. And he goes, oh, yeah, I believe it. We have janitorial staff that refuse to work in this building at night. They work everywhere. But here we've had people go upstairs because the light was on just to get upstairs and there not be a light on. We've seen people playing chess upstairs. When you get up there, there's nobody there. But it's like, how do they end up playing chess? And like, he's like, because it was just like you could see
people sitting,
and it looked like that was what they described the behavior of, was spookiness.
That's creepy.
Yeah. So now, interestingly enough, all of these things, especially this time of year, lead to the conversation of the spiritual side of religion. Okay. You know, a lot of people like to think about God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus or whatever their religious affinity is, and they stop there. Right. And they never consider that all throughout the Bible they talk about demons and
ghosts,
all weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not that they disappeared. They've got to be somewhere. Right. So what happened to them? Right. And bring this conversation up to the pastor, and he's like, it just turned to a very long conversation because like it's not something that people really dabble in, right? Like it's almost you're looking at the occult, and now you're looking into like people get weird when you start talking about spirits and demons in a non-Holy Spirit biblical sense.
Right.
Or it's the devil made me do it, or maybe Shadow Man's real, and
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if you believe in heaven and hell,
you kind of got to believe in the other side of things.
Right.
All right. Well, this is where I'm going to put an ad break in. Want to thank our sponsors. Wrong camera. Thank our sponsors, Stream Kits at streamkits.com. That's STREAMKITZ.com. For these super dope branded The Tactical Talker boom mics, which is the parent company of the Dad Task Force. The Tactical Talker is a media and production company that produces training for the everyday person just to get through life, whether it be finances, parenting, how to skin or butcher a deer, how to make certain recipes, whatever it is that you want to do. At the Tactical Talker will help make that dream come to fruition, because we have the production capabilities and the marketing skill set and just understanding how adult learning works. And with super awesome sponsors like Stream Kits, we have a 4-camera system with super telescopic lenses, with flat, easy lenses that click on to poles, posts, tripods, you name it, with seamless integration into audio. And with Task Force 15, you get 15% off at checkout. That's StreamKits with a Z.com with Task Force 15 for 15% off at checkout. Additionally, speaking of the Tactical Talker is .com is live and well, where there you can find all things Dad Task Force. You can also find DadCom, 21 days to a better relationship with your child, which comes from my training and experience. I was a hostage negotiator and a school resource officer, and I've worked with kids in different youth group capacities and mentorship programs. In 21 days, you can sit down and develop the same skills it takes to negotiate somebody out of a bank during a robbery to build a better relationship with your kid. You want to be a tactical guy? Cool. Go be a tactical guy. However, that's not going to make your kid like you. Building that relationship, understanding who they are, what they like, what they love, that is the key to building relationships that last, which ultimately lead to legacy happening in your family. So if you're a dad out there and you want to know more, also find us on the Dad Task Force on Facebook and join a local chapter. If you're in the Idaho area, we have a Boise chapter, which we're planning a meetup very soon, probably between the holidays or immediately after the holidays. And then if you're in Canada, we have a Canadian chapter. And if you're just somewhere in the country, it's like, man, we need more like dad-oriented stuff. We have friends all over the country, and we would be happy to not only set you up with a chapter. You want to be an admin, we'll set you up as an admin so you can moderate and manage your group and you can plan things. But we will help get you plugged in and do everything that we can to build your chapter. That is thetacticaltalker.com. All right, now on to the more uncomfortable stuff.
Ooh,
it's not really that uncomfortable. I talk about this stuff all day. I really don't know how much political stuff you talk about or get involved with, but
yeah, it varies, but nothing to shy away from.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions. Do you have a political affiliation?
I do not vote as an independent.
Okay. Well, that makes tonight incredibly uneventful because I also vote unaffiliated. Oh man, I was hoping you were gonna be one or the other, and I could just sit there and like jam you up, and like we could have like a spirited debate on different things. Now, for what it's worth, I think this year I pretty much voted down ballot, but normally that's not the case. I'm very much I vote by issue and person, not by party.
Right. Sometimes that shakes out one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a couple of things that I wanted to just kick around and talk about tonight. Now, first of all, election day is November 5th.
Yes.
I heard a stat today that says almost a third of the electoral college, or the people that would comprise the electoral college, like 50 million, have already voted.
Lots of early voting this year.
Lots of early. Why do you think that is?
I really have no idea. I've been thinking a lot about it.
Have you voted yet?
I have not voted yet.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's really fun and cool. Maybe I'm corny to vote on election day. But yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with like ballot boxes getting lit on fire and stuff.
I saw that. I was very surprised to see.
Right.
We had some friends come over on Sunday, and they had said that they have a nurse friend up in Portland.
Okay.
That they take their voting packet and they mail it in. That's their way to vote.
Right.
But what happens when they set that blue box on fire?
Right. Like nobody knows how those would have ended up.
Yeah.
So, or who had already actually voted, for that matter. So.
Okay, I'm gonna open this link so I can look at the data.
Okay.
I got questions for you.
Yeah.
I saw this. This is where the rabbit hole started.
Okay.
And I just okay. Of registered voters, do you think men vote Republican or Democrat, or even, and that includes those that lean that direction?
Okay. I would say, I'm going back and forth multiple times just in this 10 seconds. Democrat is what I'm going to say.
You think men vote Democrat?
Yeah.
You would be incorrect.
Okay.
According to PewResearch.org, 52% of men tend to vote Republican or lean Republican.
Okay.
Whereas 51% of women
See, I knew
go Democrat.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was 51% of women voted Republican, which is why I was like, it's got to be the opposite for men.
Yeah.
So.
And then like the subset was 46 lean or vote Democrat, and then for women it was 44% vote Republican. And that the remainder is people like us that are unaffiliated or independent.
Right.
What's nuts is, how do you think what happens to those numbers? I'm going to pause just because I know Amber's walking in.
Oh, not a ghost.
Yeah. However, I think this house is haunted.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
Nobody's lived here before.
No, no shit.
Worker died building the house?
No. No, I know for a fact that didn't happen. We've all had like
weird things happen.
It's so
weird. Erica doesn't like being home in our house alone. She said she hears stuff.
That's weird. We're your neighbors, so that makes it like.
Yeah, I bet it was like the land.
Yeah.
It's weird land.
Weird tribal stuff.
Yeah.
Anyhow. The garage door finished closing. Beep. All right. Okay. Now, we have decided that 52% of men vote Republican and 51% of women vote Democrat. Stupid dogs. For married men, What do you think that number does?
Ooh, for married men, that number probably goes up on the like voting for Republican.
It does. So, and then the number on the other side drops into the 30s.
Oh.
Yeah. And honestly, it goes up for women too.
So it drops into the 30s for women voting.
No, it drops into the 40s for women voting, married women voting Democrat, and married women voting, or excuse me.
And then
up in the 50s for
see.
Married women voting Republican.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, this is where it gets wild. Registered voters that are men that live with their partner, not married, but they have a long-term relationship that they live with. How do you think they vote?
Democrat.
By a huge margin.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Same with women.
Huh. I guess I could see how that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It gets better. Divorced men and separated men.
Ooh. Divorced men and separated men. I would think I'm going to stick with it goes up on voting Republican still.
Nope.
Really?
Goes down.
Goes down.
Widowed men.
Widowed men goes down.
Goes up.
Goes up.
Never married men.
Never married men goes up.
Goes down.
What? Wrong on every single one.
1% of never married men vote vote Democrat, and 37 vote Republican.
Interesting.
Yeah. Straight men.
Straight men, more Republican.
Gay men.
More Democrat.
By a huge margin.
Right.
83 to 17%.
It would align with all the media stuff.
It does, yeah. Now, what was interesting, not that this has any bearing on how you vote or what you should vote, but there was a stat that came out that said that married men that vote Republican have more sex than any other of those demographics.
Really? With women?
With women. And are generally happier with their partner.
Interesting.
And whatever this, I think it probably aligns itself with religion more than not.
Yeah, probably.
So you're in a long-term committed relationship because most religions encourage that.
Right.
And so you actually love your spouse. You're not just getting married to get married.
To get married, right.
Or because, wedlock or whatever.
Right. I guess that would make sense.
Let's go back to this. Okay. Sorry. Parent voting habits. I meant to cover that too. Now, let me find it. Parents. Men with children under the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel they vote?
What's the time span on this survey?
Fathers of children under the age of 18.
And this is a recent survey.
Yeah.
Okay. They probably vote married men or just men in general?
It just says fathers of children under the age of 18.
I'm going to go Republican.
By 54%, compared to the 44% of men who do not have children.
Okay.
And it's almost identical with women.
Okay.
That was the bigger takeaways of that came from PewResearch.org. I'll link that into the thing so you can look at it and not get your panties in a twist because I said something.
I wonder how much of that has to do with like Republican Party's typically more fiscally conscious.
Interesting.
You got kids and you don't want to give as much of it to the government.
Let's talk about the economy.
Okay.
Now, I didn't put any linked things or notes. I've got just tab after tab after tab after tab. And had the producer been here tonight, I was actually going to have her share these tabs and go through them. What's wild is that I can't get a straight answer. Now, I know how the economy is based on my own personal experience currently compared to what it was in the last administration.
Mm-hmm.
But the economy is a weird one.
Yeah, because the timeline is weird.
It's a very odd flow. You actually see the curvature of the lines go up and down with the years. So
yeah, there's like an 18 to 24 month like lag before you see
any real data.
Right.
Now, COVID messed everything up because that directly tied to the economy is jobs.
Right.
Now, I've said it a number of times that father's primary goal in life is to protect and to provide for his family. Mm-hmm. And that usually means to have a job, right?
Right.
Well, if we have a job and you're working your ass off, but you can't put food on the table because you can't afford food, like how does that reconcile with how you vote?
Right. That would mean probably going to start voting the other way of what
you would
the
think.
Current administration is.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we tend to blame what's right in front of us, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other aspect of it was during COVID, there was a significant job loss because people were working from home. They couldn't go to work. People got fired because of vaccine mandates or their personal and political beliefs.
Right.
And then the administration that followed took credit for a surge in job opportunity and job growth, but objectively, that data belongs to the jobs that were lost during COVID.
Right.
It's like you can't take $5 out of my pocket and then say I'm $5 richer.
Right.
Right. Like, and like it doesn't work that
between
way.
the two of us. It's still the same $5. Yeah.
Exactly. So those numbers are really difficult to find.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably could have had I put a little more energy and effort into it, but it's more of a vote with your dollar kind of situation. So if I'm a dad, which I am, and I actually do all of the grocery shopping because I do all of the cooking for my household.
Right.
So I see every week the cost of food. And we don't do processed cheap like hamburger helper style dinners. Like I've got a kid that's got celiac, so no gluten. The other two, we abstain from dyes and sugars, unnecessary sugars in their food for health benefits and just cognitive functions.
Right.
So a lot of the food we cook in our house is fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we made cream of spinach soup, or we make Alfredo sauce. Like we do a lot of these things from ingredients that you buy a can of milk or a jar of milk, and if the ingredient is anything other than milk, it's like
it's not going in there.
So I know how much food costs, and my wife, because she doesn't do the buying but she does the budgeting, she's always like, you're at or over budget.
Right. And
for groceries. And
you bought grapes.
And I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. I don't know what to do. So I get it. Like this is a big issue. Is the economy something that's important to you when you vote?
Not necessarily. It would have to be like screamingly different than previously, because I've known like of the overhang of like the previous 2 years on the current economy. Now, if there's like a president who's been in seat for 2 terms, that's easier. Or administration that's been in seat for 2 terms. But this time that's not the case.
No.
So, last time it wasn't the case.
Does this have an impact on how you're going to vote next week?
Does not have an impact on how I'm going to vote next week.
Interesting. Okay. And we'll come back to that because I'm curious now. All right, education. I took this quote from a white paper.
Okay.
Right. Here, we must reassert a truth so primordial it predates conservatism as a political philosophy. Parents are the primary educators of their children. Taxes are raised or fees collected, and schools are established only to assist them in this task, not to take it over. Civilized nations deprive parents of this role or limit it only when there is established criminal neglect.
Ooh. I agree that like education is primarily on the parents. Just as somebody who was like around high schoolers for so long, it was very apparent like who the kids who like their parents were very involved tended to do better in school. The kids whose parents were just like, okay, go to school, I'll see you whenever I see you, typically struggled. Unless that kid had like some ulterior or like external motivation to do really well in school, like get out of a bad situation or something like that.
So when it comes to education, how much power does a school have?
In terms of like
Your kid?
my kid, it's an interesting question because the timing of this is odd because we are pulling our kids out of school and they're getting homeschooled as of next week.
You. Why?
Not that I think like teachers aren't doing a good job. I think they're doing the best they can, but there's like in my oldest daughter's class, there was like 37 kids. And so I think my wife mainly, but like we can do a better job at home of like pushing our kid and making sure she's tested instead of having to like adhere to 36 other individuals.
So I'm going to tell you a horror story. It's another spooky story that revolves around parental rights and education because the next section is the parental rights bill that was just introduced. Yeah. Okay. I was a school resource officer and I walked into this high school. We had 17 schools that we covered, so it wasn't uncommon to float. And the staff grabbed me and said, "Oh, we're so happy you're here." I said, "Okay, that's weird."
Yeah.
Why? The parents of this girl are looking for her. I'm like, okay. Get on that little device.
We have these things called phones.
They're like, well, we can't. We put her in an Uber and sent her to Planned Parenthood.
What? And they don't have to tell the parents this?
In the state of California, at 12 years old, a child takes on medical autonomy.
Right.
Meaning that parents don't have a right to know medical information as it relates to their child unless the child provides consent or permission.
That's crazy.
So in the situation, the parents could not know. And I simply said, "That's not my bad news to deliver." And turn around and walk out.
Yeah. You didn't put that kid in an Uber.
No. I'm not getting involved.
Yeah.
It's not my business.
Good on you.
Now, when that being said, parenting, the schools will tell you, and I know for a fact because I've heard teachers say it, they know better than you. They went to college to be an educator. They know how to teach. What do you know how to do?
I know that I learned all this stuff, and I am fully capable of teaching somebody else. Just because I didn't go to school for it. Maybe I can't teach 37.
Well, even I don't think it's that hard.
But
it's already educators. It's classroom. And my wife used to work in a school as a teacher, and classroom management is difficult. But it's if you have a gift of gab, you can handle that kind of thing. And I've seen teachers not be able to handle it. They can only handle like 5 or 6.
Right.
Not to knock on teachers, but do you know where the first place? So have you heard of the gender unicorn?
The gender unicorn?
Yeah.
No.
The gender unicorn is a diagram that basically says like identity, sexuality, sexual preference, and something else.
Okay.
And it's a slider scale for each one.
Okay.
So it kind of gives a visual aid for how a child identifies sexually, biologically, what they're into,
right,
etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen that outside of the school, but that's in the school system. Now, before you pull your kids, how would you feel about that being something that was actively being advertised in your child's school?
So that's something, it didn't necessarily have a factor in us pulling them out, but it was something we talked about for a long time. And in my honest opinion is like, if that's the first place your kid is hearing about it, then you need to look in the mirror and figure out why you haven't talked to your kid about that. Or also like if that is the first place, like it's your job as a parent to give them what your family values are on that and correct it, because whatever your values are, you're entitled to your values. Sure. But like you said on a previous episode, like in this house, I'm the king.
Yeah.
And these are the identities that we adhere to in my kingdom.
Damn straight.
So
that was a quote from, I believe, Ted Danson and 3 Men and a Little Baby. That was the first time I said a bad word. I watched that movie and I laughed so hard when he said damn straight. So on the same idea of education,
mm-hmm.
in California, and like, look, we both came from California. So California is a relevant subject matter because they do some wild things in California, especially with the Department of Education. Your kid doesn't go to school, so education is compulsory. You have to go to school,
right,
up until you graduate, or you get a GED or whatever,
mm-hmm.
right? Compulsory, meaning you can be compelled to go to school. What happens if you don't go to school? If your daughter, say she's 15 years old, and she's like, I ain't going.
Here or in California?
California.
Don't they go to like juvie?
No.
No.
In California, people under the age of 18, 1, the police cannot interview them or talk to them if they're suspected of a crime without violating their rights until they've consulted an attorney.
Okay.
Right? So it absconds from Miranda and goes straight to here, call the attorney. The attorney's going to say, don't talk to the police.
Right.
Right? So now you have to either cite or not cite. It's a citation, but most counties in the state of California will not accept a child absent violence, weapons, significant circumstances.
The citation, but you're not going anywhere.
Right? You're not going anywhere, right? Do you know what was enacted instead?
What?
Mom and dad can be taken to jail.
Whew.
Do you know who signed that bill?
When was it? Recently?
Well, when she was the Attorney General.
Oh, Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I remember I had a senior officer like, yeah, you can just take the parents to jail. I was like, get that. You got to send a parent to jail because
their kid won't go to school?
Yeah, and then you talk about loss of weight. And I saw a clip today about how it was like, yeah, loss of weight. The parents are going to lose wages. They could lose their job. They could have significant life consequences. And yeah, I'm going to dismiss the charges, but they're going to learn a lesson. Who's going to learn that lesson? The parents are going to learn that lesson. And the child is incorrigible.
Right. Yeah, I get the thought behind it. I don't think that it's gonna change the behavior of the kid.
It's not going to change the behavior of the kid at all. If the kid's already an a-hole and is indifferent to the things that they have to do, mommy and daddy going to the pokey isn't going to change their mind.
Right. I'm not, if I respect my parents, I'm probably not missing school in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting one because education does matter. Like, it's something that I think is very important. So on that, let me look at this stat real quick, and then I'll jump into the. Now, this is a very partisan newspaper, so take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
But it has to do with parental rights. Do you think schools should be providing sex education to young children under the age of 10?
Is that a question to me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no.
3 and 4 agree with you. Okay. Do you think that schools should be explaining to young children under the age of 10 that gender is something that kids can declare, or should they not be teaching young kids that gender is something that they can declare?
This should not be teaching kids that gender is something they can declare.
7 out of 10 agree with you. Do you think that schools today are focused on teaching kids reading, writing, and arithmetic, or are they too involved with teaching kids gender and race ideologies, focusing on teaching kids reading, writing, and arithmetic? Where do you think that landed?
Like how many people think that the
by the two political parties plus independent? How do you think give me a rough estimate on a scale of 1 to 100, how you think the Republicans believe, out of 100 Republicans, how many believe the
school is focused on it?
Reading, writing, and arithmetic?
40%.
37.
Yeah.
Democrats?
70%.
73. Independents?
60.
58. You are on fire with this one. All right, now, same 3 categories. How many, out of 100 Republicans, how many believe that the schools are too involved with teaching kids gender and race ideology?
Oh, 80%.
63.
Dang.
Democrats?
50%.
27. Independents?
50%.
42.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you think that public schools should be required to notify parents if a student requests to change their gender, identification, pronouns, or preferred name at school?
Hell yes.
87% agree with you. Now, I can say, look, ain't my kid, ain't my problem, right? But I had kids that would pick chairs up and hurl them across the classroom if they got misgendered.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wild.
To a lesser degree, I had this one kid that was, I don't even really know how to describe her because she was a freshman and probably the meanest person I've ever met. And all she hated her given name.
Okay. Go buy something else.
The teacher refused to call her her nickname and would only call her her given name.
Oh.
And it caused so many problems. She was a Hispanic female who somewhat resembled a popular cartoon character of a Hispanic female.
Okay.
And being at school, everybody would, make fun of her. But that was her name. Her name was Dora. And the teacher...
Talk about inconvenient.
Teacher did not want to call her by her nickname. Or her preferred name.
Right.
So I'm asking because that's what we just talked about.
Yeah. Ish. I got no problem calling a kid a different name, but reassigning who you are.
Yeah.
I need to know if my kid is trying to do that at school.
And I think that's the important aspect is letting your kid. It's one thing if your kid wants to, whatever, be something else.
Yeah.
be a new person, but you should have the ability to know that
To know.
information.
Right. It shouldn't be a secret. Like my kid's not living some alternate life when they go to school.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Parental Bill of Rights. HR 5, the Parental Bill of Rights. I think it just passed the House.
Mm-hmm.
If I read right. So here are the highlights. So let me just be clear. These are the highlights of the text. Schools will have to post the curriculum for each grade level on a public website.
Okay.
Sounds
No
good
problem
to me.
there. Yeah.
When I teach across the country in different states, I have to give an outline of my curriculum that I'm teaching professionals so that the state, the public, and the agency knows what's being taught to adults. Why is it lessoned for children?
Right.
Right.
I have my own ideas, but
What's that?
I think if they post it online, what's stopping people from homeschooling their kids?
Well, now you're talking about funding and taxes.
Yeah.
So, little known secret that when you report acts of violence on a school campus, it has to be reported, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes public information.
Right.
If people get a hint of or feel the breeze that that school that their child is unsafe or dangerous, they move.
Yeah.
If people move from a school district zone,
Less money.
less money.
Right.
It's all tied to money.
Yeah.
So, back at it. Including the local education agencies and the budget for each school in an annual report card.
Okay.
It prohibits schools from selling student information for financial gain.
Oh yeah, that should already be illegal.
Should be. It gives parents the right to know if their child is not proficient in reading or language arts at the end of 3rd grade.
Oh wow. That's weird that people don't know that.
No, a lot of people can't read that are our age.
That's true.
Gives parents the right to know if their children's school allows students of different biological sex to use certain restrooms or changing rooms.
Read that one again.
Giving parents the right to know if their child's school allows students of a different biological sex to use certain restrooms or changing rooms.
On board.
Here's another horror story while we're in the spooky season. I know for a fact, because we did a police report and an investigation on it, gender-neutral bathrooms, which are single-use stalls with a locking door, is the place where kids go to do drugs and sex.
Makes sense.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. The last bullet point that I have is it gives parents the right to be notified of major cyber attacks that may have compromised student or parent information, or PI&I.
Yeah.
Why is this such a hostile bill that people, it's not bipartisan, and the question is why?
Right. Why? Like, this is all, to me, very common sense stuff.
Absolutely common sense stuff.
I mean, I have my own theories on why why people are voting against it. And that's all the other stuff that's not in the highlights.
Okay. What was that?
Like where everything, like all the other underwriting
like
of the bill.
lobbyists.
Yeah. But
Yeah, look, without telling you who we're voting for, because I don't think it's any of your business, and I'm not going to put Davon on the spot, and I think it's pretty clear who I voted for. So at the end of the day, like, the future of our country is dependent upon your ability to exercise your civil rights. being lazy and lackadaisical about exercising your rights only allows them to be diminished and taken away. Now, it may be even with good cause. We had to have an honest conversation today when one of our contracts, the service provider has the ability to detain people and take them to a mental health facility. And the question was posed, do you understand what probable cause is, which is the legal standard to take somebody's Fourth Amendment right away?
Right.
Because you're an agent of the government in doing this. Because if you don't, and you're just saying for the sake of, you know, your feelings that they're a danger to themselves, you're kidnapping them.
Right.
They're like, there's a legal threshold of a standard. And, even though it's well intentioned, I know that happens. Because
right.
people are just trying to do what's right. They don't have a lot of options. Mm-hmm. So you have to vote. I don't care what direction you vote, if you're independent, Democrat, Republican. I don't care if you vote for Trump or Harris or somebody, you know, you write in yourself. But go out and vote. But don't waste your vote on some political nonsense because you identify with a political party over another. Think about your wallet. Think about the cost of goods. Think about the future. And think about your children, because guess what? We're all getting too old to go to war, and somebody's going to have to do it for us.
Yep.
And it's going to be your kids. And if you don't want to go to war, then maybe, perhaps, vote for people that aren't promoting the war machine that is the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
Any parting thoughts?
No, you nailed it right there. Don't just vote to be a part of a party. Vote your beliefs and vote what you want the country to be.
Yeah, so absolutely. With that, it's that time of the show where we give the opportunity to talk about somebody that matters or has kind of positioned you to be the man that you are, to be the father that you are. I think you did the last one.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I don't know this guy, but I think that he's got a lot of wisdom behind him. And he was in the military. He was a state congressman in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that would be Nick Freitas, because he says a lot and does a lot that makes sense, but everything that he does is pro father and pro husband, and we need more strong men in that camp promoting fatherhood and masculinity in a way that protects our women and children.
Absolutely.
With that, happy voting season and have a safe Halloween.
See y'all later.